Depending on where you are, these assignments are going to change. This one is specifically to the Great Salt Lake, and here you have a few species that go into this food web. So we've been talking about food chains, but now we're talking about food webs, which are a little bit more accurate than food chains. Food chains only describe um, who it's who. Food webs describe where the energy is going or where the energy is flowing, and it's a lot more accurate because every species doesn't just eat one thing, it eats several other organisms. So what you're gonna have to do is read a little bit of that and then start from the reading. From the reading, you're gonna have to answer these questions right here for level 2. And then level 3, you're gonna have to think a little bit about where the energy is flowing. So I would actually highlight, I would use the highlighter, right, and start highlighting. See, every time you see food, who eats, where's the food coming from? Where's the energy coming from? So in this case, the diatom says that they use the sun's energy in the process of photosynthesis. So diatoms are actually photosynthetic organisms. They're not consumers. They're going to be something called a producer. So if you go here, see, like, at least of all producer, one of the producers will be the diatom, and the reason why is because it's using the sun's energy. When you use the sun energy, that is called a producer because you're producing the energy for the rest of the organisms in your ecosystem. An ecosystem, it is a group of organisms that live in an area where, there's other non-living things like rocks and water and sunlight and air, and a lot of other nutrients on the soil, and you know weather, all those things. But ecosystem refers to specifically the living organisms taking advantage of each other as well as their environment that they're in. So that's what you're going to be working on. That's what these are all part of the one ecosystem. So they're not living together happily. They're actually living together, um, trying to make the energy go from one organism to the other, meaning they're gonna be consuming or eating one another. So a consumer in this case will be a any organism here that is eating another one. Like in this example, for example, the California gull will be a consumer because they are feeding. So right here, you can highlight it. They are feeding on the brine fly. That's why it's called. Uh, that's why they're called consumers. Now, a predator, it's somebody who's going to use energy to attack, to hunt, and attack, and consume and eat another animal. Like, for example, in this case, the fox will be a predator because they are going to be the ones. It says right here that the fox, uh, they consume eggs, young birds, and even adult birds. So that's kind of what a predator is. They're going to use energy. Now, there is more. I think there's another producer. There's more consumers and there's more predators. I'm only giving you an example of each. I'll help you with a decomposer. A decomposer is one that is going to basically break down the cells of an organism that is dead. So, if you just go ahead and tear apart a body, like a fox would tear apart the body of a bird, that's not a decomposer, even though they're tearing apart something. Decomposer specifically refers to cells, so cells being broken down. So, for example, some bacteria are going to be seen, they are breaking down organic materials, meaning the cells of plants and animals. So they also break down the pupa casings of brine flies. So that will be a bacteria will be a decomposer because it's a cell that destroys other cells. Now, you've learned about predators. Predators are the ones who have spent energy chasing, hunting, and eating other animals or other species. And then a prey is generally referred to an animal that gets eaten. So it's not like a plant wouldn't be a prey, or a tree wouldn't be a prey, but a prey would be like an animal that gets hunted and eaten by a predator. So this is like close relationship to each other. A herbivore would be any of these species you're gonna have to find that only consumes plants, and a carnivore, it's any species that consumes meat. Omnivore, like you and me and a lot of other animals, are animals that consume either plants, animals, but also insects, bacteria. Like we consume bacteria, or at least some parts of bacteria when we consume yogurt. We consume yeast as well. So we don't just consume animals and plants. We consume a lot of other things as well. So we will be an omnivore, but there's other omnivores. But again, in this food chain, there's no humans. In this food web, there's no humans. So you will have to find who would be the omnivore in that reading. And then obviously, like let's say, like after you're done, like if an event killed large amounts of brine shrimp, what will happen to the food web and why? So you're gonna have to think about, okay, what's the brine shrimp? Who is the brine shrimp providing energy for? No, not who the brine shrimp eats, but who is the brine shrimp going to pass the energy to? That will destroy the food web. But also, if you're going to think about, okay, who does the brine shrimp eats, and is there no brine shrimp, what will happen to all the species right here that the brine shrimp eats? So if there's no brine shrimp, what will be the effect of it and why? And then, like, are you a producer, consuming, or a decomposer? How do you know? You're a herbivore, carnivore, or omnivore? How do you know? And then you just keep going down the list. Right here in level 3, you're going to have to think about where the energy is flowing, just similar to the activity with the food fight with the arrows, where the energy is flowing. And then here, who's going to get the least amount of energy? I'm going to give you a hint right here for level 4. Think about who gets the most energy. Who's going to get the energy either from who has unlimited access to energy, like who doesn't need to chase anybody down, who doesn't need to use energy to move, basically to walk around or move. Which organism in there is just going to have to basically sit there, do nothing, and get the most energy, right? Because again, if you think about the eagle, you will think, oh, the eagle, or the falcon actually has one of the least amount of energies, because they have to spend a lot of energy flying around. They have to spend a lot of energy chasing things down. They have to spend a lot of energy if it's a female feeding their youngling. So it's gonna be a lot more work for them. So even though they're eating larger animals, not only that, but they don't eat the whole entire, like they say they eat birds right here, other bird species. So they don't consume the whole bird. They're gonna leave some of their body behind, so they're not using all the energy from the bird. They're only gonna use mass. So the Burning Ground Falcon in this guy will actually get the least amount of energy, which kind of makes sense why they will have to be more violent as to consume their prey, or why they actually need to hunt bigger animals. So that's it. Once you're done with your questions, you can turn it in. Very good.